Hello, everyone. Nice to see you guys. I had a lot of bookings yesterday. I couldn't believe it. I think it was because of the testimonials that you guys all shared. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. It was very, very kind of you all to just to share a little bit about what you've experienced after a clearing. I was down, Adriana and I and Kat and Carolyn, we all worked very diligently to get my list caught up of bookings. We were down to 9 days, and now we're up to how many pending bookings? 103. I think I had something like 27 bookings yesterday. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you very much. Very kind of you guys to support us, and it makes it easier to support you guys as well. And yeah, we've been doing a lot of clearings. We've been very, very busy. I am kind of astonished as to how many lizies we've been finding everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. We've been doing clearings pretty much 3 to 5 times a day for the last week, and an hour each time. And they're just coming out of the woodwork right now. They seem to be very desperate, and they're very concerned about what humanity is up to, and trying very hard to kind of keep us under their boot wheel. And it's not working, as you can tell, which is why they're acting the way they are. Their desperation seems apparent. I actually got attacked at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is one of the reasons why I'm talking about it. I was trying to kind of unwind after my long drive home, and I felt immediately ungrounded. I don't know what it was. I was just sitting here, and then boom, ungrounded. And when you're sitting in a chair and you feel ungrounded, when you're sitting down and you feel dizzy, that is a huge red flag, especially if it happens out of nowhere. Unfortunately, I texted Carolyn. I'm like, Carolyn's awake. It's 8 a.m. Like she can check. And sure enough, Carolyn found some lizies on me. And I was like, what is going on? And she goes, well, I mean, you did come through an airport, and that is basically like a big lizzie pit. I was like, can you imagine? If you think about it, if you could actually see the Astral as you're walking through the airport, you'd be carrying one of those big cans of Astral bug spray. It's like it's just all out onslaught of attack in one of those places. So I'm very grateful that I was able to get a clearing, because that's why I finally fell asleep last night. So I'm a little bit out of it today, going to bed at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. But this is why we have coffee. This is the coffee thing. So yeah, thank you very much to Carolyn for clearing me. But it just goes to show that no matter how high your vibration is, you can still be susceptible to attack if you go into one of those areas where it's just a cesspit of astral beasties everywhere. And Adriana and I were hanging out. We were in the middle of making mango jam. We spent like a whole day making mango jam. Thank you to Adriana, by the way. She's such a sweetheart. She's just the best host ever. And we were just hanging out, and yeah, immediately same thing. Felt ungrounded, and we were both like, "What's that?" Like, as soon as you feel ungrounded, that's the first thing they go for. Sure enough, there were lizies coming in to mess with us while we were making jam. I was like, "Why? Why are they coming in now?" I don't know. They're just messing with people right now. So make sure that you're keeping your back covered and all of these things. And if you feel off, call in your spirit team immediately. The faster you can call in your spirit team to clear you, as soon as you notice a red flag, the better. Michelle says maybe they just wanted some mango jam. So yeah, we have learned quite a lot, though. I have been asking a lot of questions about reptilians recently. Because, whenever you notice certain patterns, after a while, you're like, wait, there's something going on here. Because every time we would find a nest, for example, we would find a runner. Every time. Like, whenever there's a nest, we found a runner. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I wonder why there's so, just every time. So sure enough, something just intuitively told me that was the female. And I looked into it, and it is. So I was wondering, I was like, why do the females run away? They don't fight. They don't, want to stick around and see what happens. And they said basically that the females are slaves. that the females are treated as broodmares, basically, and it's not only the females that are slaves, there are the lower level of reptilians that are basically like the foot soldier types, and they're the ones that are sent in to attack people. Like they set the ground for the bigger ones to come in, so they get your vibration down, they start attacking you. And it's the foot soldiers really that they don't know anything. They don't even know that females exist. Could you imagine being so much of a slave that you don't even know that there is a female version of your own species? They know nothing except the glory of, combat and the honor of dying for their owners, basically. So I was really surprised at that. And that's why there's always a runner. It's a female. So I asked about the females, and they said, well, the smaller ones, the ones that are a bit, they have a hierarchy. And the smaller ones are actually very, I wouldn't say docile, but they're just there to make more lizies, basically. And another interesting thing they talked about was the fact that there were hierarchies among the females too, where the higher up you go, the more nasty they get. In fact, the females that are like the officer types, because we do have officer, how crazy this sounds talking about officer lizies, but these are the ones that are highly intelligent. They're the ones that are kind of setting people to purpose and telling the lower ranking ones what to do. They're the ones that are able to go and, pretty much destroy your entire life if you really wanted to. It's the big ones the Draco that I'm talking about, that are the ones to be most concerned with. And those are the officer types. They have officer mates, like officer females, and they are even worse than the males, apparently. Isn't that interesting? It reminds me very much of vampires. Like, anybody know vampire lore? It sounds very much kind of like this, I don't know. It's almost like this, what's the word? It's like this nesting thing that they do, where the more they come together, the nastier they get. And the females, the more they subjugate the females of their own race, the higher in rank they go. So it's very interesting. We've been learning a lot about them. I'll be putting this in my book, in my Beastie Manual. But it is very interesting how much that I was blown away that they don't even know that there is a female version of themselves, the lower ranking ones. So it just goes to put into perspective, like, yeah, they're slaves too. They're just as subjugated as we are in a way, if not more so, if you think about it. Michelle says, do they have Lizzie orgies? I have no doubt. Could you imagine walking into somebody's house and you're like, oh, the energy in this house is just nasty. And then you find out that, yeah, they're making Lizzie babies in there. Normally when we find, so what happens, right, is they'll find somebody who's going through a really rough patch. Somebody who's going through an addiction, somebody who's going through a breakup, somebody who's going through some kind of a mental health breakdown. And they'll send in one of those little lower ranking foot soldier types, and they'll go in and they'll start causing problems. They'll start breaking things. I had a client the other day that messaged me, and they were like, I think I have a poltergeist in my house. They're like, my mirror fell off the wall while I was sleeping. And they're like, the lights keep flickering and this and that. And I go in there fully expecting to find some earthbounds that were fucking with them. And no, it was a bunch of lizies. It was a nest. So what they do is they'll send in some of these low-ranking, foot soldier types, and they come in and they start making a mess of the place. They start causing stress around the house. And the lower the vibration goes, the more comfortable that will be for the big Dracos. So that's what they're doing, is they're making the house hospitable for the big ones. So if you can catch it while you're just dealing with one of these low-ranking ones, then generally you can keep things from spinning out of control. Because when we've seen after, a couple months maybe of them being in the house, everybody in the house is going through something. Either a massive health problem, because if they want to affect your health, they'll just bring in one of the hybrids. Because the hybrids are there, the gray reptilian hybrids are there to kind of mess with people and to make sure that, your health starts to deteriorate, because they'll start putting all kinds of implants. And we've found people that look like the Borg in Star Trek. Like, that's what they look like, their astral form. So if you go and look at them while you're astral projecting, that is what they look like. Could you imagine going to see one of your friends in the astral and be like, I wonder what Jimmy's doing today? Then you go to Jimmy and he's looking like a Borg in the astral. So that's the kind of shit that we have to remove from people. And, you know, that takes about 7 to 10 days worth of recovery if you've been dealing with massive implants to that degree. So, yeah, this is what happens. They slowly work their way in, and then they start dropping the vibration of the home, and then they bring in the big ones, and then the big ones bring in their friends, and their friends start attacking your health and your mental health and all these other things. Next thing you know, you're screaming and yelling with your hubby because they're pitting them against each other, and your children are not very well. They're constantly sick. And the next thing you know, you call me, and I go in and find there's a bunch of lizies that have hatched in a nest in your house, and they're running all over the show. Whenever a nest, whenever all the babies hatch, I always ask, like, guys, I'm like, is there a nest? They're like, yeah. Is there babies? Yeah. Shit. Okay, we didn't catch it in time. Kat says, we have been seeing so many crazy things while doing clearings. Very grateful to be a part of this team. Love you, Kat. We're very blessed to have each other's back in all of this. Because, yeah, they're getting smarter. They're getting much smarter and more desperate. And whenever, people get desperate, that's when they start doing really stupid shit. And the same thing goes for the reptilians. Because they're not that different from us, ironically. They're pretty much where we learned everything. In fact, what's interesting too? We was discussing this about genetics over the week. I was chatting with Zach about this. Adriana Soul Guide, for those who may not know. And we were chatting about humans and their quirks and some of the things that they do. And I asked something about, worship and why we are the way we are in regards to religion. And he goes, you do realize that humans are programmed to worship things. Like, this is something that has been deeply ingrained in their mindset since their creation, since their genetic modification. And this is back in Atlantean times. And Zach is like, you notice that humans will worship anything. They'll worship a rock, a tree, the sun, anything. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's why. It's literally in your DNA to worship things. Programmed straight in there. And of course it is. So it's very interesting that, and it's not just that. There's other things that we've noticed that are programmed into, because one of the things I asked, it was about, okay, I clear a lot of succubi from people. I'm just putting it out there. Okay. That's why I'm mentioning this. I clear a lot of succubi, and I'm always asking, like, what is going on with this? And they say humans are just designed this way. They are designed to want to procreate. They have this strong sexual urge that has been programmed into their genetics, and this is to keep themselves repopulating. Even if they're being eaten, they're still repopulating. So how many people have said, like, even if it's the last day on Earth, what are you going to do? Well, how many running jokes are there? If there's only 5 minutes left to live, guess what we're doing? Well, humans are funny that way. We worship or want to fornicate. Well, that's why. It's because it's in our DNA. So it makes you wonder how many other things they programmed in our DNA. You know what else we found while it was away? I found one of these. They're very rare. I think I've only found 3 since we started, and I've been calling them Pharaoh lizies. There's a lot of different hybrids out there, but if you can understand why I would call them a Pharaoh lizzie, anybody watch Stargate? Stargate, about the Goa'uld, which is like this parasitic snake race, kind of, in a way. Well, we have found that there are lizies that will come straight out of your third eye, like a snake. And we found somebody that had one. And it looks like it's coming straight, like a snake, coming straight out of your third eye, and it's just chilling, coming out of your face. And if you've seen Egyptian pharaohs and how they have the big mitre hats, and then they have the snake coming out of it, the cobra, that is why. Apparently they were personifying what they were doing in the astral, because that is exactly how we found them, just sitting there chilling, looking out of the third eye. Like, you just can't make this shit up, honestly. And the person had severe headaches, by the way. The person who was having that, can you imagine the headaches having a giant snake embedded in your third eye would cause? But apparently imagine how much that was actually manipulating the pharaohs back in the day. If they all had one, or at least were representing that they had one, it does make you wonder. Michelle says truth is stranger than fiction. No kidding. Just laughing at Daniel Jackson's comment. Is that a snake in your eye, or are you happy to see me? So, but now we're starting to get a deeper understanding of things, because if you look at the Egyptian pharaohs and you just wonder why they had that, now we know. Now we know, because they're fucking real. Jenna says people are fucking around with a kundalini. That's also could be it. That's also true. It's not like snake energy is bad, but having a snake in your third eye probably is. We happen to like snakes. I used to have a pet snake. They don't bother me very much. But I imagine, having one embedded in your third eye is probably not very comfortable. I had my godmother message me one day, and she was talking to me about all her health problems in regards to her breathing. And I was like, there's something here. I'll call you right back. So I went and had her cleared. And sure enough, we find a snake that was wrapped around her throat, and it was like choking her. And she couldn't breathe. She kept having these massive coughing fits and was really struggling to pull in oxygen. And then we find a snake wrapped around her throat in the astral. And I tell her all this, and she's like, holy shit. And it went away. The problem went away within a few hours. So it just goes to show, like, there's things that affect you in the astral. You can't see them, but they're still there. In India, we cover our third eye. I used to not like it much and thought it was regressive, but I'm kind of rethinking it. Well, covering your third eye, this is one of the things that they do. In fact, you know what's really interesting? Everybody that has a witch wound, everybody, men, women, doesn't make a difference. If you have a witch wound, they're affecting the same 3 chakras. I think I mentioned this once before, but I'm not sure. But the same 3 chakras are affected every time we find somebody with a witch wound. And if you could think about what those chakras would be, the third eye, of course, to stop your intuition, the throat, so you don't speak your truth, and your heart, because that is your seat of power. And where everything, you know what I mean? If they can affect the heart, then they can affect all the chakras. Nice to see you, Ariana. Hi, Trisha. So, yeah, there's all kinds of things that we're starting to discover that are kind of typical, it's like a typical thing to look out for when people have certain situations. So snakes have a dual meaning. They can be spiritual. They can also be a strong warning. Depends on the situation and the type of snake. Now, no kidding. Kat's from Texas. She knows. Most snakes in the astral aren't of the light. Carolyn and I confirmed that with the latest clearing we did. The chakra is affected by a witch wound. Yep. Third eye. And you know what else is interesting? Whenever they find somebody that is a medium, whenever they find somebody that is a gifted healer, they cut off the crown and the third eye. Because they want to stop you from being able to channel all that energy and pulling in all that energy for your healing work. So I've been jokingly calling it like an iron yarmulke, because we've been finding, like, it looks like one of those little Jewish hats, but that's exactly what it looks like. They put one right over your crown. And sometimes they'll even have one that looks like a helmet. So it not only covers the crown, but it'll come down over your third eye and block your third eye as well. So it's kind of like, if you look at, what was that? Oh, I just saw it in my head. In X-Men, that helmet that Magneto made. They do that a lot, because that'll cut you off completely. And so, especially with the people that are, trying to heal a witch wound. And that is why I made that post the other day. Because we have been finding so many people with witch wounds. Like, it's guaranteed, if I'm doing 10 clearings a day, 3 to 4 of them, maybe 3, even 5 of them have been witch wounds. So I was like, all right, this is crazy. I'm going to make a post about this, because there were so many people. So many of you are all healing the same thing right now. And some of you are healing it to an extreme degree where it's like your 6th or 7th time you've been in this cycle trying to heal things. How will you know if you have one of those blocking you? You will feel disconnected from your intuition, from your spirit team. You're going to feel lethargic, because that's where your energy is coming in. It comes in, all that energy comes in through your crown. You're going to feel ungrounded, because if you're not grounded in your crown, and usually they're going to unground you with your feet as well. By the time I got home from the airport last night, so I was cleared when I left Adriana's, right? And like 8 hours later, when I get home, what do I find? I had Carolyn, sorry. See, you can tell I didn't get much sleep. Carolyn cleared me at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I had, I had one of those helmets on. I had shackles on already. I was like, are you kidding me? But honestly, they do kind of look for, they gang up on me a little bit. Normally, when there's one Lizzie coming in, these things don't happen so rapidly. But when you're going through an airport and they see somebody juicy walking by, they're like, oh, let's get her, you know? And that's what happened to me. I felt very ungrounded. I had anti-grounding plates underneath my feet. By covering, I meant positively, like being safe from psychic attack. Well, you know, if you're an empath, I do tend to kind of like shelter my chakras in a way. You can do that through visualization as well. But you know, it's interesting. Think about the monks back in the day and how they used to shave their heads, and they'd have like that bald patch right there. I mean, they were trying to get closer to God. They didn't even want their hair getting in the way of them and God, as they would say. So that's why they made the little the little reverse ball patch right there, so that way they could have that connection better. And it makes you wonder if there's anything obstructing it, if that's part of the problem. Because I have noticed that if you put on a hat, when you've got too much energy coming in, this is a good thanks to Sarah Jane Patton for this tip, where if you have way too much energy coming in and you have like, because I mean, when we get downloads in these solar flares, it can be really intense. You don't even see it, but you probably have like this beam of light coming down into your crown. And if you're not grounding yourself, that energy has nowhere to go. It's going to rattle around all over the place. So you have to ground that. And if you have anti-grounding plates on, you're going to feel very ungrounded and dizzy. You're going to have all kinds of, you know, issues connecting with your spirit team as well, with your vessel. You're just going to feel very disconnected. So whenever that happens, that's when you call in your spirit team and you ask them to make sure there's nothing obstructing your grounding. Mira says the airports are giving everyone a respiratory take. Yes, they are. Well, I mean, I get on the plane and they're fumigating the plane. And I was like, oh, why? Like, I get it. They're probably spraying for mosquitoes or something. I don't know. But they fumigated the plane as we left. And I immediately was like, oh, I'm going to have to do a lot of breath work to recover from this one. Trisha said, dang, I've heard that before. Some astrology teachers read my chart and said, oh, looks like you signed up to do it all in this lifetime, like clear all the challenging stuff. Like, I don't ever want to do this again, so I pile my plate high in this life. But once I got here, you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Well, it's like a triple college major. You're thinking to yourself, you know, I want one of those degrees that takes 10, 12 years. So I'm going to do a triple major in 4. And then you realize that you're basically working 3 jobs at once. And you're burning out and you're like, oh my God, just kill me now. Like, I've been there before where you just put way too much on your plate. Pretty much my entire life has been like that, because I am also on my last human life. Because then, you know, if you're here for your last time, you're going to be tying up a lot of loose ends. There's going to be a lot of things you're finishing up, a lot of karmic contracts that you're clearing out, a lot of ancestral stuff that you're healing for other people as well. So there's going to be a lot on your plate, and it can be very overwhelming, especially if you're getting psychic attacks while you're trying to do it. Not only that, you know, I was wondering whether or not I was going to mention this today. We had a challenging case while I was away. And I normally, you know, I always keep my clients anonymous, and I hope that they don't mind me mentioning this, because this was a very profound case that affected us to a very large degree. So Adriana and I sat down to work, and Kat was messaging the group, and I was like, Kat, you want to come and join us? So she did. She just came in and backed us up, and just to hang out. Zach is always so nice to hang out with. We're always wanting to hang out with Zach. So I was like, do you want to come and join us? And she's like, yeah, sure. So we did a clearing on this one person, this one gentleman, and he was just riddled. Like, I was actually, it was one of the worst cases I've seen in quite a long time. And I'm wondering, what is going on? Like, this is a lot. This guy had a lot going on. They were really picking on him. You can tell when somebody's getting ganged up on, we'll put it that way. And this person was severely getting ganged up on. And we immediately were like, oh my God, this poor guy. Like, how the hell is he surviving this? Like, when you have more than 4 lizies on you and you're still like, imagine your astral self. Imagine what your astral self looks like when you've got like 5 of those gargoyle types on you. You've got like 2 to 4 demonics on you. And then you got like 4 lizies. Like just beating up on you. Imagine what it looks like in the astral having all of this on you. Like, it's like gang stalking. I don't mean to laugh, but it's insane how much they will actually like, you know? And that's what's happening to this guy. So we cleared all this for him. He was a mess. He looked like the Borg too. He had all these implants. I think he had like 108 implants or something. And I laughed because I was like, haha, Siddhartha. So we clear everything. We get to the spells and curses, and this poor guy had a shitload of them. And I was like, wow, this is a lot of spells and curses. And I was like, ancestral, everything. Yeah, he had the whole 9. So we were wondering I was like, damn, this guy must be a veteran or something. And he was. But I'm like, where is all of this coming from? This is a lot to have on one person. So we get into past life resonances. And usually this is where, if you have a lot of past life stuff going on and spells and curses and contracts and all of those things, you know, and we get to the past life resonances, and you're going to notice I do tend to give a little bit of information sometimes, because if there's a lot there, I do try to at least give you some kind of an idea as to what you're working on. So I asked the guides what was going on, and they said that he was responsible for genocide in a past life, where he was a black pope. And I was like, holy shit. And as soon as Zach said this, like, I ran ice cold. Like, my whole body, I'm like, oh, like, holy shit. Like, I don't know why. As soon as he said he's responsible for that, like, he was responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. And I was like, holy crap. Okay, that'll explain, you know, the curses and the spells and all the chaos, right? So I started digging into it. I'm like, you got to tell me more than that. Like, come on. And he's like, Lara, you were one of the victims. And so was Kat. And I was like, no fucking way. And he's like, yeah, he was the Black Pope. And I was like, don't tell me this is related to the Cathar thing. And he's like, it is. He was the Black Pope that sent the Cathars to their death. And Kat and I both were like, I'm telling you, it was like somebody shoved us into a freezer. We're like, oh, like the chills all over our bodies. We're like, holy crap. And we're going to France in like 2 weeks. Kat is coming to France with us. Kat was like last minute decided, I'm coming to France, baby. We're like, yeah. So this was like a week ago that we planned for her to come. What are the odds that Kat is coming to France with us, where we're going to do a Cathar retreat to do healing for this? Because Erin Saniva and I have had serious like past life trauma in relation to the Cathar thing. Like, for those of you who don't know who the Cathars were, it's a really long story, but within the course of 20 years, they killed 1 million people across Europe. And these people were considered the good Christians. They believed in equality for everybody, regardless of your religion or your gender or whatever. You know, they were very loving, considerate, altruistic people. And the Vatican slaughtered them down to the very last man. Not even kidding. Very last man. Slaughtered them all. And this is something that Erin and I were working on healing within ourselves last year. Like, when I went to France, I triggered some very emotional stuff, and I found out that is why, especially when I went to Carcassonne, which is the last stronghold of the, or at least one of the last strongholds of the Cathars. When I tell you, this was an intense clearing. Like, I was shaking as I'm typing. Like, holy shit. So his higher self, this gentleman's higher self, came in and explained that this is something that he has been working on for lifetimes. Like, he's trying to repay this. When he was the Black Pope, he was basically body snatched. He was not himself. He had entities. He was completely riddled. However, they did say that he had an eidetic memory. Like, that is how intelligent this man was. So this Black Pope had an eidetic memory, like to the point where he could literally remember everything he's ever seen and heard. And he would use it for cruelty. Like if somebody were to even look at him funny, his higher self said he would go for them. He would remember them and make them regret it later on. And so he, with this, I mean, perfect memory, he was hyper intelligent, and he used that intelligence to seek power. And, you know, like I said, 1 million people died. This was in the 1200s. So, you know, it's almost like it's a wound. It's like a witch wound. It's a persecution wound. And so when you're going through healing a persecution wound, you have this thing that you've noticed you've been doing where you shrink yourself down to hide yourself. And this is actually part of the imposter syndrome that I've been dealing with my entire life. Because the more you put yourself into the spotlight, the more likely you were to be killed for it back in the day. And as Kat just said, yeah, they were persecuted, they were raped, they were beaten, and they were killed. Just, I mean, they killed men, women, and children without impunity. Did not care. They wanted them exterminated. And that is what happened. They were completely exterminated. So we finding all this out in this report. I had to put this in the guy's report. I'm like, shit, should I even mention this? Like, would somebody even want to know that they were responsible for this? Like, it may have been inadvertently. He wasn't out there killing 1 million people with his bare hands, but it was his policy. It was his laws that he was enacting and his people that he was sending to do the dirty, to do the work. He sent 10,000 men to slaughter them one by one. So, right? So I put all this in his report, and I'm like, oh my God, how is this guy going to handle hearing this? His higher self, I was like, is this really going to be in his best interest to know this? And his higher self said he has been diligently working towards this. He really needs to heal this. So it was his higher selves that insisted I put all this in the report. My heart is pounding as I tell you guys this, because this was probably one of the most intense clearings I've ever done. And when, you think about how many people have been responsible for policies like this, there's so many of them, so many. And eventually, yeah, you do have to repay that karma. And who knows how many life he could have had 100. This was the 1200s. He could have had 100 lifetimes since then. And that's just in the linear sense. He could have been bouncing all over history because time isn't actually relative. He could have had 1,000 lifetimes since then, because he's a completely different person now. In fact, when he sent me, I was so nervous to send the report too. I was like, oh my God, what is this poor man going to think when he sees all this? That is a lot. Like, the last thing we want to do for any means whatsoever is to guilt or shame somebody, period. Like, that is the very last thing you do. But at the same time, how else are you going to uncover your past and heal your past if you don't even know what's in it? So, I was like, all right, fine, fuck it, I'll tell him. And this poor guy has to process all of this. And now when he responded, he's like, I'm a completely different person, for the record. I'm like, oh, I can tell. Like, I can tell you're not a genocidal maniac, just for the record. But we beat ourselves up. We have no idea what we've gotten up to in past lives and what we're trying to work around and to help repay and balance the karma of. And can you imagine how much karma that requires? How much balancing that requires? And you know what's really interesting? The reason he reached out to me for a clearing is he has very terrible memory in this lifetime, to the point where he has huge gaps in his life that he doesn't even remember. So I asked his higher self, like, why is the memory so bad? And they said because of his eidetic memory and how he abused it. So now you get the opposite. It's like we give you a gift and then you abuse the gift and turn it into something else. So now we're going to make sure that you get the opposite. And it's really interesting too, because something similar happened with a friend, because a friend of mine has been going through some severe health problems, and yet she doesn't want to deal with them. She doesn't want to change her diet, doesn't want to change her lifestyle. And I said something to her about it, like, come on, like you really got to snap out of it. And she's like, she got really mad at me. She did not want to hear it at all. So I said something because I did a clearing on her later on in the day, because this is my friend that always has the earthbounds on her. So we checked, and sure enough, and I said something about it, and they said, you do realize that if you don't want to take care of your body, if we give you a Ferrari, okay, if Source gives you a Ferrari and you don't give a shit, you don't change the oil, you don't give it what it needs, you don't take good care of it, you don't rest it, you're just gunning it all the time. You're not even shifting gears, okay? You're just breaking down the Ferrari like crazy. They're not going to give you a Ferrari in your next lifetime. They're going to give you a fucking bicycle. And I was like, wow. Could you imagine? So now I feel guilty a little bit about my own vessel. I'm like, I'm going to do better because I don't want a bicycle next time. Daniel Jackson's like, I got a Toyota Corolla. Yeah, exactly. So if they give you a gift, right? And just having a body is a gift. If you had even half an inkling as to how important having a body is and how many entities and just spirits are waiting for a body. There are trillions of souls out there waiting for bodies. And you managed to get one. And what have you done with it? Just out of curiosity, like, it does make you wonder, kind of like, I just hearing that, I'm like, okay. Noted. I'm going to be doing better. I want to take better care of my car. Thank you very much. Because I do not want to be stuck with I don't want to have this kind of looming over me. My whole life I haven't been taking very good care of my body at all. I just eat whatever. I'm a Taurus, We're foodies. We just eat whatever tastes good. We don't really think about these things sometimes. So my whole life, and you know what else is interesting? If you've ever had a lifetime where you starved to death, or ever had a lifetime of extreme poverty where you went to sleep hungry quite often, it does create all kinds of food issues later on in your new lifetimes. And I've had several of those lifetimes. So it is interesting, even just as an oracle, right? That's why I was pointing to her, because my lifetime as an oracle, they used to starve us so we would give better readings. I want a clearing, but I'm scared of what you'll find. Are you sure that it's not your attachments that are scared of what we'll find? Are you sure? Are you sure it's you that's afraid, or is it the things that you're afraid? Because I had one client that was like, she booked with me and she goes, I don't know why, but I got extreme anxiety as I was booking the clearing. And I was like, that anxiety is not you, just for the record. If you're feeling anxiety as you're signing up for a clearing with me, I guarantee that is not your anxiety. That is the Earthbound's anxiety. Kat said, got him. Thank you, Kat. Love you. Nah, sleep paralysis. We don't fuck around with that. Like, nope, you're done. Get out. Aaron says, imagine roots coming from your feet and connecting to source. Go outside barefoot and face the sun for a few minutes. You are very welcome, Kristen. Steve to the rescue. Oh my God, Kat, should we tell him about the other day? I want your permission first before I open my big mouth. Can I tell him? Because that was fun. That was kind of cool, actually. That was kind of awesome in a way. But who knows if they're even going to believe me when I tell them this anyway. Hi, Alicia. She says, hi, Lara. How far are you booked out for SRT? Well, there's 103 this morning. Although I was 9 days caught up. The people who booked with me, although the animal clearings are keeping us slowed down a little bit. I'm a little behind on the animal clearings right now. But other than that, yeah, we're about 2 weeks, maybe at the most. And we're keeping up with them very good. Oh, Kat said I could say. Okay, cool. David says spill it. So Kat and I were hanging out, as we do. And we decided we're going to do a couple clearings, etc. So we're just kind of tuning in. And we were having a little chit chat about her name Irwin. And I had the thought in my head, like at the exact split moment that Kat did. We were both wondering if Steve Irwin has crossed over or not. So then we both look at each other. We're like, no, because we both got the same thing. that he wasn't crossed over, that he was earthbound. I wondered if he was in a death loop. We weren't sure. We checked him. He was not in a death loop. So we tuned into Steve Irwin's energy, and he was not crossed over. He was still in the water. He was still in the water. He was not in a death loop, interestingly enough, but he was in the water. He wasn't sure what to do. He was just kind of floating out there, like floundering, like, what is happening? So we actually, we helped Steve to cross over. But you know what else is interesting? I had the thought, Steve's mom popped into my head. And I was like, Steve's mom? Like, why that? So I look into it. I go back, I go and I Google Steve Irwin's mother. Steve Irwin's mother died in a car crash. She was in a death loop. And I was like, holy shit. So we went and we helped Steve Irwin's mother. She was in the death loop. We helped Lynn Irwin cross over. So then I thought to myself, okay, well, if Lynn Irwin is in that situation, like, where is his father? Where's Robert Irwin? So Bob Irwin has been around for quite a long time. You know, he's a very old man. I think he was born in like 40s. So we check in with Bob, and Bob was riddled. Bob has been, for those of you who aren't been kept up with the Irwin drama, Bob Irwin has been estranged for like a decade. He doesn't speak to anyone on that side of the family. So we went and checked Bob, and that's what we found. We found a lizzie nest. So we cleared all the lizies from Steve's father's house. We crossed over his mom, and then we helped Steve. And then Steve crossed over with his mother. He didn't want to go without his mom. So Kat and I are getting all emotional. We're like crying in the middle of this clearing. We're like so happy that we were able to help Steve. And then we started joking about how Kat's guide's name is Steve, because that's what he told. His name is not actually Steve. He just told us his name is Steve. And we were wondering this whole time, like, Steve? Of all the names that you could have picked, like, why Steve? And then we realized, oh my God, he was making a joke about Kat's last name. Like, that's why he chose the name Steve, because Kat's last name is Irwin. And we were just a bit like, oh, seriously? It took us that long to figure this out? Oh my God. So yeah, Steve is okay now. He's crossed over. Love you, Steve. Just in case, because you can start name dropping, they hear you. So just in case we called him by talking about him and telling you guys all this, just wanted to say, wow, we love you, Steve. Thank you for everything that you do. And he said that if we're doing animal clearings, we can call him in if we need help. So we're like, oh, like, yay. So isn't it funny though? His name is Steve, and now we know. Now we know why he is Steve. Amanda says, I have a dragon named Steve. Steve is just one of those funny names. Like, you know, if you're just coming up with a random name, you're like, ah, Steve. Kat said, Steve was my idol growing up. He saved my life so many times. He's here watching and says hello and says keep helping the animals. Aww. So yeah, as you can tell, it's been an emotional week. We had all kinds of excitement during clearings because that's the only thing we really did. Like, you know what's funny, right? You should have seen my office, because I brought my laptop to the beach and I was using my phone as a hotspot, and Aiden was swimming in the surf and I'm chasing beasties on the beach. It was really funny though too, because we had this whole empty beach. Like, the beach was completely empty. And this big family came over and they came to sit right next to us. Like, we're talking like 10 feet away. And I just looked over at them and they were getting really loud. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm trying to focus here. I'm trying to do clearings. And then I said really loudly, so any reptilians that you're seeing? How about any demonic entities? Any demonic entities in the house? The people look over at me and they're like, nope. And they pick up all their shit and they move like way down the beach. They were like, nope. It was really funny though to be doing clearings on the beach and then hearing people do my clearings and they're a bit like, they moved so far down the beach. They were like, nope. All I had to do was say reptilian and they ran. They're like, oh no, crazy people on the beach. It's so funny. Well, Well, at least I got to keep my quiet space, right? They're like, okay, there's crazy people here. But it was so nice, like, just sit there. I'm like typing away on the beach, just hanging out, chasing beasties on the beach, chatting with Carolyn and Kat. Like, it was so much fun. That's the best office you could ask for, right? I totally did scare them though. I knew they were gonna move on because they were loud and they were in my zone. So an old beach to choose from. Mira says every psychic I meet keeps asking who is Thomas. Someday glad you're going, Steve. See, this is one of the reasons why it's really important to get to know your soul guides. And they may not tell you their accurate name. In fact, sometimes their name is just a sound or something. Like you don't even, if you have a very unique guide, a lot of them have a very strange name. So they're not even going to ask you, they're not going to expect you to pronounce their name. They're going to be like, just call me Bob. You know, like, honestly, if I went down to the beach and there was only one other family there, I certainly would not sit anywhere near them. Well, you know, I did wonder what was going on there. But it is funny that we can actually go and do it. I want to do this more often, doing clearings on the beach. Who wants to do a retreat where we just go and do clearings on the beach? So yeah, I was very glad that we helped Steve, by the way, because I just love Steve Irwin. And I'm very grateful to Kat, by the way, for all the cool things that we've been doing. Because Kat's fun. So like, whenever we're like, hey, we got a historical lost soul rescue. You want to do it? She's like, yeah. Historical lost soul rescues are my favorite right now. I really love them. You know who I really want to do a clearing on, and I'm probably going to see if we can cross her over. And I've said her name before, but I want to clear Diane Fossey. I know Diane Fossey is not crossed over. There's no way she's crossed over. So that we'll do that on the Lost Soul Rescue on Friday. For those of you who are my students, we're going back to normal this week. I'm sorry. You know, it's crazy, right? I got to Adriana's on Sunday, and Adriana's internet went down for 5 days starting on Sunday. We had no internet whatsoever at Adriana's house. The whole first 5 days we were there. So this is part of the reason why we were doing clearings on the beach is there was no internet at her house. So could you imagine? Because Adriana is like the busiest person I know. She's more booked further along down the line than I am. And so, yeah, no internet for 5 days. Adriana was like, thank God this happened now. Could you imagine if this happened on a week where I wasn't taking the whole week off and where she was actually having like all these clients a day? She would have had to reschedule like 25 clients in the course of a week. So it's funny. It's like the universe saying, hey, you need to take a break. You need to slow down. Enough is enough. You're actually going to rest this week, by the way. So yeah, I'm very glad that we were able to give ourselves like a proper week off where the only work we really did was chasing beasties, which is not work to me. Writing reports is work, but doing the actual chasing, that is pure pleasure. Enjoying it very much. But you know what's funny? Mira says spirit guides work cut the internet. You know what's funny? Zach was so frustrated too. Like Zach was equally frustrated that we didn't have internet because we couldn't work from the house. We had to go out. Adriana's house is like hidden behind a hill. So there's no like cell reception at her house either. So we couldn't even like check messages, like nothing. Like we were screwed. We had to go into town to be able to read to use our phones and stuff. So we said to Zach, like, fix it, please, fix this. So Zach was doing everything. In fact, he even went to the Arcturians to ask for help. And he told us, I said, Zach, what did they say? He goes, they just laughed at me. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, the Arcturians, they just laughed at me because it's a human problem. This is not something the Arcturians can fix. Sorry. And I'm like, well, if you went to the best, tech people on the planet and they said it's out of their hands, I guess it's just out of their hands. That really cracked me up. He's like, no, they laughed at me because he went to them and asked for help. So no, that was purely human error that was unfixable by the guides. So it was just the universe plotting against us or for us, depending on how you look at it. So yeah, this is, and it's all back to normal now, funnily enough. How much more rest and communication did you get with no internet? Well, I certainly felt more rested. So yeah, it's been basically a really fun, relaxing week, but we did have some excitement when it came to beasties. You know, it's cool though. I saw this really beautiful church. I shared it with you guys because I was like, oh, look at this church. They only want 60 grand for this church. Oh my God, we'll convert that so quickly into a healing center. So I said something to Zach, and Zach's like, you do realize this is something that you already planned before you were born, right? And I was like, what? And he goes, to have a healing center. You're going to have one someday. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, you're going to have a healing center. You're going to have your own healing center where you're doing all this work from the healing center. So now I'm like, looking around. I'm like, I got eyes for churches now. I'm going to convert one. Watch me. Taking it back, as they say. So wouldn't it be cool though to have a place where you can come and get cleared, just show up and get cleared? Have like sensory deprivation tanks that are filled with sea salts. They're blasting like high frequency binaural beats. Can you imagine? Lizies wouldn't stand a chance walking in there. We'll just be like fumigating the place with sage weekly, like every day, just pumping the whole place full of sage. I know some of you have been asking for when we're going to be doing Reiki 2. Reiki 2 is coming up in a couple weeks. I think that'll be August 16th. We'll be doing Reiki 2. Kat and I are doing a gridding class. I believe that will be on the 15th. So there will be a gridding. So the gridding class that Kat and I are teaching is going to be all about basically home protection. It's gridding up your house to make sure that you've got a crystal grid and other things around your house that will really make sure that your shit is locked down, so to speak. We're creating like an Astral Fort Knox here. So these are all on my website. We'll have some links signing up for those very soon. Tina and I both being away, it made it very challenging to get those things up on the website. So we'll work on that over the next day or two, and I'll let you know when those links are live. So my sister told me you were going to have a school and healing center 2 years ago and you're just getting into SRT. Lovely. See, it's all in the cards. We just got to manifest. Law of attraction, right? Anyway, I'm going to pop over to Astara today because it is Monday and we always do our Astara chat. For those of you who are interested in joining us, every Monday we do a chit chat, basically face to face on Astara. It's over Zoom. So yeah, for those of you who would like to join us on there, we do have a Monday chat where it's basically a mentorship chat where we just talk about whatever you like. We answer questions, we get onto all kinds of stuff. It's basically an opportunity to have a podcast that is completely uncensored. I do have to keep my mouth shut in some degree on Facebook because of how bad the censorship is on here. So that is why it's nice to have a space where we can just discuss whatever we want. We got the community mentorship. It's always on Mondays at 11 a.m. And you can join at astaracommunity.com. That is our website for our school. We have an online metaphysical academy for those of you who are kind of new to hanging out here with us. So make sure that you check it out. There's all kinds of interesting stuff up on our community website. I love you guys. It's really wonderful to be here today and hang out with you. I hope you all have a wonderful day.